Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, all. Welcome to Swarup IT Solutions. Now, this is the second video of the technical series, which is integrating the latest community update or service pack through your SQL 2022 installation. This will be part 1, through which we will be learning how to integrate the latest community update or service pack through SQL 2022 installation. Okay, so this is the technical video series, video number 2, and this will be the part 1. So welcome back to Swarup IT Solutions. So in this particular video we will learn how to install SQL Server 2022 along with latest community update or service pack. So let's start. Now this particular procedure we will learn the following major steps. This will be the part 1 of this particular video series. Second video, part 1, in which we will be installing the SQL 2022 server along with the latest community update. So what all steps we will be covering in this particular video? We will be having an introduction to the SQL community update or a community update in general. What is community update? Next is we will be downloading the latest SQL 2022 community update from internet. Third one is we will be installing the SQL 2022 with latest community update integration. Means at the same time when we are installing SQL 2022 freshly, at the same time we will be integrating our latest community update within that installation, and our root OS will be Windows Server 2022. Next is we will be downloading and installing the latest management studio for SQL 2022. And then we will be verifying our SQL 2022 installation version in liaison with the latest community update. How we can confirm that our SQL is equipped with latest community update? We will be verifying the version. Okay, so let's start with the first part, introduction. So what is SQL Server community update, or what is a community update in general? Okay, so a community update is a bunch of updates including the previously released updates. Now what does that mean? So let's say example, on January 1st Microsoft has released 1 KB, which will be our, let's say, KB1, release as an security critical or important update. The criteria can be anything. On February 1 it has released the KB number 2, same as security critical or important update. On March 1 it has released the KB number 3, same as security critical and important update. So up to now they have released the 3 updates. Now April 1 they are releasing the KB4, which is not a normal KB, but it has been released as a community update, which includes the previously released updates, that is KB1, 2, 3 and KB4 also. So what is a community update? It's a bunch of update which is actually including your previous updates also. So IT administrator don't have to install number 1, 2, 3 and then number 4. Even if you are only installing KB number 4, that will suffice your security parameters. Okay, so next is what will be the prerequisites for this particular video. So first we will be requiring, of course, our root OS, that is Windows 2022 Server OS ISO. Second is a virtual or a physical machine with at least 16 GB RAM. I will be recommending 24 GB because we will be installing the SQL Server on it. Third one is SQL 2022 Server RTM ISO, of course, because we will be installing the SQL 2022 application on our 2022 Server OS. Fourth is of course internet connectivity for downloading the latest SQL community update or service pack, and then the latest SQL server management studio also. Okay, so those are the two softwares we required for this particular lab. So what will be our lab setup? So as you can see, the first machine will be our base machine, will be our physical machine, which is Windows 2022 base, which is having a base OS or root OS as Windows 2022 data center server. The role for this particular machine will be our Hyper-V host physical machine. So it is actually getting used as an Hyper-V server. Hardware configuration is like it is having 1 TB of hard disk, latest i7 CPU with the VTX technology, and then 128 GB of RAM, physical RAM. It will be having a local IP of 10.1100, and the system model is of course physical server or a workstation. Second machine we will be building actually for this particular video lab, for which the hosting will be SQL 2022. It will be running on again Windows 2022 data center server OS. The role for this machine will be SQL server. It will be a virtual machine. We will be having a 200 GB hard disk, one virtual CPU, and then 24 GB of RAM, and then it will be having a local IP of 10.11.10. You can give any IP, but I have just given 10.11.10, and it will be your system model will be virtual machine. So this will be our lab setup for this particular video. So let's start with the practical steps. The first step is downloading the latest community update for SQL 2022. So step 1, connect to internet and download the latest community update, that is community update number 15. That is the latest one which has released for SQL 2022 through below link. So this is a official Microsoft link for downloading the latest community update for SQL Server 2022. I will provide this link in the description box of this particular video, so you don't have to search it on Google, but you can search it through Google if you want to. So let me go back to my internet machine. This is my particular virtual machine. So here I'm just opening the Google and I'm just typing a normal search like SQL 2022 latest community update download. Okay, it's a simple search. So as you can see, the official Microsoft site you can open. Over here you can select your language and you can just simply say download. So what I need to show you over here is the version number. You can take a note of this version number, 16.0.4145.4, and the date published is 25th of September. So round about 1 month back Microsoft has released this particular community update. Okay, so the file name will be this SQL Server 2022 KB 5041321, and the architecture for this is x64. The size is around about 450 MB. Okay, so I have already downloaded this. If you can see over here in the downloads, I have already downloaded this particular file. This is the latest community update, and again I'm just repeating, this is the community update number 15. Okay, CU 15. Do remember this. Okay, coming back to our slide for the next step. So we have already seen this particular site. Next is we will be creating a new virtual machine from the scratch. Now my training videos may be a bit longer than the normal training videos you can see on the YouTube, but I am always believing to build the lab right from the scratch. So I'm building this particular machine right from the scratch. So open Hyper-V Manager console through Windows 2022 base system, right click on server hostname and new virtual machine. So I am opening my Hyper-V console over here through my Windows 2022 base machine. These are some of the existing virtual machines which are running. Kindly ignore those ones. So I am just saying new virtual machine. Okay. Next step is on before you begin window, click next. Before you begin is just like an introduction part of an wizard. You don't have to do anything. I'll say next. So next window, on specify name and location window, provide your VM name and appropriate VM storing location and click next. So for this particular VM, I'm just giving the name as SQL 2022. You can give any general name, and I am selecting the location as my secondary partition, J drive, and over here I'm just creating a new folder called SQL 2022. I'll just select this folder, so J SQL 2022, and I will just say next. So next step is we need to specify the generation of your virtual machine. So this is the latest OS. SQL 2022 is running on Windows 2022 server, which is the latest OS. So we need to specify the latest generation as generation 2 and click next. So generation 2, click next. Now we need to specify our RAM. So on assign memory window, specify the memory as 24 GB and click next. So I'm just specifying the 24 GB RAM in MB. So it is 24576. Yes. I'm just clicking next. Now next is we need to specify the network connectivity for this particular VM. So on configure networking window, select internal network switch and click next. If you already seen my previous video, Hyper-V nested virtualization, I have specified how to create the internal switch, how to create the external switch for Hyper-V. So here I'm just selecting the internal switch which has already been created for the internal connectivity or network connectivity for your SQL 2022. Remember, this is an internal switch, so it will be having an internal connectivity or a LAN connectivity, not the internet connectivity. Okay. So next. So on the connect virtual hard disk wizard, we need to make sure that it's showing the correct VHDX storing path and name, and we need to specify the value as 100 GB for this particular VM's virtual hard disk. So it is showing the correct name as SQL 2000. It is taking the same as VM name. Location is also correct, J drive, and it is showing the virtual hard disk path. And here I'm just selecting 100 GB. Okay, just need to change from 127 GB to 100 GB, and I will say next. Next, on the installation options window, select install an operating system later option and click next. So as of now we are not installing the operating system directly. You can select the second option also and select the ISO, but as of now I am selecting install operating system later and say next. Now next is verify the summary and click finish. So we'll verify the summary. The name of our virtual machine is SQL 2022. Generation is generation 2. Memory is 24 GB. Network is internal. Then hard disk path is your secondary partition J drive, and then virtual hard disk path, and operating system we will be installing later. And I will say finish over here. So it will create our virtual machine. So next step is we need to open the newly created SQL machine, and we need to go to the settings of that particular virtual machine. So I will go back to my Hyper-V console, double click on it, and I will say file settings. From this way also you can go to the settings, from this way also you can go to the settings. So next is we need to add a DVD drive. So on SQL 2022 VM settings window, click on SCSI controller, DVD drive, and click on add. So I will say SCSI controller, DVD drive, add. So on DVD drive window, we need to select our image file, that is our Windows 2022 server ISO, and once it is mapped we will click apply. So I will say image file, browse, and you can see over here this is the latest one, SQL Windows Server 2022 Data Center GUI October 2022. I've selected this particular ISO. I will say apply. So still on the VM settings window, click on firmware and set the first boot order as DVD drive so that it can boot from the DVD drive. So I will go to the firmware, go to DVD drive which we have just mapped. I will say move up, say apply, and then OK. Okay, so next step is start the SQL 2022 virtual machine and install Windows Server 2022 OS as usual. So we'll start our SQL 2022 virtual machine. It should ask for the DVD booting. So I've just pressed enter. It is booting from a normal OS, and now it is showing our OS installation wizard. So it is a straightforward installation. Next, install now. I will say I don't have a product key. I'll say I accept. Next, custom. The disk which we have just specified is 100 GB. I will say next, and now it is installing our operating system. So I'm pausing this video as of now. Once this OS is installed completely, we will be coming back with the further practical steps. So our OS installation is just about to finish. It has restarted a couple of times. I'm just specifying my local admin password. Saving my display setting through Hyper-V, and now I can log in with the local admin for the first time. This is the fresh OS, raw OS. You can see Windows 2022 server. Nothing has been installed on it. So by the time it is booting, let's move on to our next step. So on the next step, once SQL 2022 VM is up with Windows 2022 server OS, give an appropriate host name to system. We will be giving the host name as SQL 2022 and restart the system as required. So I will just maximize this. This is my particular VM. So don't show I will again disable this startup of our server manager also. Okay, and now I will change the host name. So host name through system property, from here also I can change, or from here also. So I will go to settings and just changing the best performance option, and now I will go to the computer name. Here I will give the host name as SQL 2022. Okay, of course it will ask for the restart, so I will close and restart. It will not take more than a minute to restart the system. Okay, I will log in. Let's move on to the next step. So next step is, once SQL 2022 VM is up with an appropriate host name, then we need to create a new local user SQL admin through computer management, local users and groups, and through users container, and we need to assign a password also to it. Okay, so I will just explain why we need to create a local user over here. So I will go to computer management, local users, and then users. I will say new user and say SQL admin, right? And I will not select this user must change. I will just give a normal password over here. So we have just created a normal user called SQL admin on this particular SQL 2022 system. We have assigned the password also. Our next step is, we need to add this SQL admin user to a local administrator group of SQL 2022 system. So I will just say right click, go to properties, click on member of, and I will say add administrators. Okay, so okay, apply. Okay, so now this SQL admin user is having all the local admin rights. It is as good as your local administrator. Okay, and now I will just restart this machine once. By the time it is restarting, I am just explaining why we have created this local user. So in a production environment or even in a normal lab setup, you are not supposed to use the original administrator account. It is a best practice that you need to create an additional account, and then you can give whatever rights you want to do, and then you need to use that alternative account. So I am just using SQL admin account. I have given the full rights to this SQL admin by adding it into a local admin group, and I will be using this account only for the rest of the lab. So I'm just logging through SQL admin. Okay, so let it log in. By the time we will move on to our next step. Next step is we need to assign an appropriate IP to our SQL 2022 virtual machine. Why do you require IP? Because normally SQL communication goes through your internet protocol or IP, even if you are having a local host name specified, but it's always recommended that if you are using any kind of an SQL or any kind of an application, given at least one IP to that system. So I'm just specifying a local IP over here. It has opened my server manager because we have logged in with the different user now. So I will just disable the startup and I will go to the network properties. From here, change adapter options, and I will go to the properties of it. I will disable the TCP IP6 and double click on IP4, and then I will give a normal IP 10.1.1.10. So I'm clicking over here, it will automatically take the subnet mask. That's fine. I will say OK. Now we have completed this step, but I have just observed that it is showing my date and time as something different. Pacific time or US time it is taking automatically, and you can see over here I cannot change it also, it has been disabled. So let me give you one small trick over here. I will open PowerShell. PowerShell IC, right click, run as administrator, and I will say yes. Why run as administrator? Because it is requiring admin rights to change your date, time or regional settings. Here a simple PowerShell command, set time zone, and in the upper stroke I will just select India Standard Time, complete, stroke complete. Just keep watching over here. Now it has taken the correct time and region for me. Okay, anyway, so we have specified our IP also for this machine. Okay, so let's move on to the next step. Next is we need to disable the Windows firewall on SQL 2022 system for Hyper-V internal network connectivity. So I will go to control panel, category small icons, Windows Defender firewall, turn off. Okay, turn off Windows firewall on or off, and then I will make it off. So my network connectivity will work, because normally Windows Defender firewall is blocking up your normal IP traffic also. So next step is we need to map our SQL 2022 RTM ISO, because we need to install our SQL, but we will be not directly installing through our ISO. There are some additional steps, but first we need to map our SQL 2022 RTM ISO. Okay, so I will go to the SQL 2022. I will go to the VM settings, and then on DVD drive I will click on browse. I will go to my apps, SQL Server 2022, and this is my RTM copy which has been downloaded through internet. Okay, I will give you the link also for downloading the SQL Server MSDN link, which will be having an evaluation version. You can buy it if you want to, but as of now we will be just using this RTM copy. So I am just mapping this one, apply, OK. Next step is on SQL 2022 VM system, create a local folder called SQL 2022 and copy the whole SQL 2022 application ISO content in it. So what we will do is, on SQL 2022, we'll first create a local folder on C drive called SQL 2022. Okay. Now I will go to my DVD drive which we have just mapped. This is my RTM copy of SQL Server 2022. So I will just say Control A, Control C. So I have just copied it and I will just paste it on our local folder SQL 2022. Okay. So the whole content I have pasted over here in SQL 2022. Okay. Next, so on newly created SQL 2022 folder, create a new folder as SQL CU. So we will create one more new folder on our SQL 2022 server, that is SQL CU. Okay, sorry, no space, no, it has not taken space. Okay, so SQL CU, we have just created a new folder. And next is, we need to copy the latest SQL community update, that is CU15, and the name is SQL Server 2022 KB5041321 x64.exe in the SQL CU folder. So we have already downloaded this particular community update in the previous step. So what I will do is, I will go back to my internet machine, I will copy this particular CU, that is community update, and I will paste it in my SQL CU folder. This is the latest community update what we have downloaded from internet. Correct? It's a simple step. It's around about 450 MB, so it will take just 10-20 minutes, sorry, 10-20 seconds, not minutes. So this has been copied. So next step, step number 25, we need to map our server 2022 OS ISO in SQL 2022 VMs settings. Why do we require? We will just see in a bit. So I will go to the file settings, the DVD drive. I will just go to my ISO path and I will map my server ISO, apply, OK. I'll close this one as of now. Now next step is, we need to install a couple of features like .NET 3.5 and 4.8. So on SQL 2022 VM system, open Server Manager and click on Add Roles and Features. So from run, I'm just typing Server Manager, no space, and I will click on Add Roles and Features. So next step number 27, on before you begin an installation type windows, click next. So first couple of windows we just need to click next. Installation type role based, this is correct, next. Okay. So next step, on server selection window, make sure that server manager is showing physical server's correct host name and IP, right? So it is showing my correct host name and IP. Okay, I will say next. So step 19, on features window, select .NET Framework 3.5 and ASP.NET 4.8 and click next. So on server roles we don't have to do anything. So on features I will select .NET Framework 3.5 and ASP.NET 4.8. Correct? See, next. So next step is on confirmation window. Click on specify alternate source path and enter path as your DVD drive, sources, SSX folder and click OK. So I will say specify alternate path. Here we have just mapped our OS ISO, if you remember, right? So I will go to sources, I will go to SSX. As I said in my previous videos also, this is required for installing your .NET 3.5 and 4.8 features. If you don't specify this particular path, the OS ISO path, then this installation might fail. So I will just say OK. I will say install. Okay. And on main confirmation window, click install, which we have already done, right? So once required features are installed, click close and restart your system once. So it is currently installing. It will just take a minute or so. Once it is installed, we will just close it and restart the machine once. Now why do we require this .NET 3.5 and 4.8? So I have explained it in my previous video also, but just explaining it one more time. So basically for running any particular Windows MMC, any particular application result, .NET 3.5 and 4.8 are basic prerequisites. It's not like that they are mandatory, they have to install, but it's a best practice to install it before you are installing any other feature, any other role, any other application mainly on server operating system. So I am always installing .NET 3.5 and ASP.NET 4.8 regardless what I am installing further. Okay, so it is just installing. It will just complete in a while. So the installation succeeded on SQL 2022. I'm just clicking close, closing this and restarting my virtual machine. It will not take more than a minute. By the time it is restarting, we will move on to our next step. Sorry. So next step is on SQL 2022 VM, we need to open an elevated command prompt and we need to specify one particular command through which our SQL server will get installed. Now what is that command? Why it is required? That I will explain in a while. So first I will open the command prompt and I will go to my SQL 2022 folder. Okay, let me just log in. Now I am just opening the command prompt, right click on it and run as administrator. Say this thing, and now I will go to SQL 2022 folder which we have created in the previous step. Okay, now next step is execute following command through elevated command prompt. So what is that command? setup.exe/action is equal to install, then update enable is equal to true, and update source is C SQL 2022 SQL CU. Now let me explain this particular command to you because this is very important to understand. Okay, so first of all, if you remember, we have copied the whole SQL RTM ISO content, the installation source, on this SQL 2022 server. Okay, so I will just explain the whole command to you again before we are executing this particular command. So let me just copy this particular command from here. Let's copy it. I'll go back to my SQL 2022 server and I will first paste it in a notepad. We'll discuss this command because this is the important step in this whole video. Okay, so as I have just said that we have already copied our content in SQL 2022 server. We have already copied our RTM ISO SQL 2022 RTM ISO content in this particular folder. Okay, so coming back to this particular command, what we are first calling is a setup.exe and action is equal to install. So it will start this setup.exe. You can see over here we cannot see the extensions of it. You can simply click on options, view, and then hide extensions. You can see over here exe. So setup.exe, we are calling it for the action is equal to install, so installation option. And now the second option is update enable. Yes, so it will update by the time it is installing. It is updating at the same time, so update enable is equal to true. And what is our update source? So our update source is SQL 2000 C SQL 2022 SQL CU. Now why this update source? Because if you remember, we have created one SQL CU folder. Inside that SQL CU folder we have copied our community update exe. So it will take as our update source as this particular folder SQL CU. So whatever inside is there exe, it will try to apply by the time of installation. Okay, so this is the meaning of your command. Okay, setup exe, then action is equal to install, update enable yes, and update source is your SQL CU folder source. Okay, if you are not still understanding what is the meaning, you can pause this video, reverse this, and again listen to this explanation. Okay, so I will just copy it and I will run it through my administrator window over here, and I will put on enter. So it will start my process of installing your SQL server. Okay, now by the time it is starting, we will go back to our slide. Okay, so we have executed this particular command. Okay, now next is once SQL 2022 installation wizard starts, on edition window select your SQL edition, product key if you are having it, and license acceptance, and click next. So as of now we don't have a product key, it's an evaluation version, so I will select the evaluation and I will say next. Okay, we don't have to select these options, evaluation version, next. Then in the licensing and terms I will select I accept and next. Let me come back to my slide. So on license and terms, accept this statement and click next. We have already done that. And the next part, on Microsoft Updates wizard, click next. So here also Microsoft Update, I will click next. On the next step, on product updates, make sure that setup has included our CU update, that is KB5041321, and click next. Now this is the important step. Since we have included our SQL Server products updates through our command, right? If you say update source is equal to CSQL to SQL CU. Now what is under that SQL CU folder? Our this particular KB, that is our community update which we have downloaded, right? Now since we have specified this particular update source in the command, that's why it is taking this particular update through installation only. So this is the important part, most important part of this video, so pay attention. So this is the hotfix pack. Now it is showing the same KB 5041321, which is our latest community update 15, right? Again I am repeating, since we have specified the update source as CSQL 2022 SQL CU, which is further containing our latest community update, that's why it is taking in the product updates, it is taking this hotfix. Now suppose tomorrow Microsoft has released a service pack, so you can download and include the same update with the same procedure. Okay, so this has been included, and this is the important one. This is the motive of this whole video. Okay, I will say next. So it will install our set of files. By the time we will move on to our next. So setup will continue its process of setup provision. So on Azure extension for SQL Server, deselect the option and click next. So as of now our setup is running. It will just take 1 minute. So it has moved on to the next wizard. So we don't require Azure extension as of now, so I will deselect and I will say next. So next step is on features selection. Select your preferable SQL features and to install, click next. So as of now I'm not selecting all of the features, I'm just selecting the database engine service, which is a basic database service of SQL. If you know what all those all other features you need to select, you can select all those ones. If you are a SQL database administrator, you better know what to select and what not. As of now I'm just selecting the basic database engine service and I will say next. Moving on to the next step. So on instance configuration, keep default instance and click next. So I'm just keeping the default instance and clicking next. Next step, on instance configuration, keep the default instance and click next. That we have already done. Next is on your server configuration, verify all values and click next. So on server configuration, I will not change anything, I will say next. Next is on database engine configuration, click on add current user and click next. I'm just proceeding with the basic setup. I'm just giving my currently logged on SQL admin account a bit of rights by clicking add current user, and I will say next. So on the next step, on ready to install, click verify summary and click next. So we'll verify our summary over here. What is we have already selected the evaluation version, then action is install with the product updates. This is important. And then the features we have selected, the options we have selected. Finally I will click on install. Now it has started to install the SQL server with the basic features whatever we have selected. Okay, so it will take 5 to 10 minutes to complete. So I'm just pausing this video. Once the installation is complete, we will proceed with the next practical steps. So our SQL installation has just finished. All the features got successfully installed. Okay, let's move on to our next step. So we have already done this. We have already completed our installation process. And then on complete window, verify that the required features are installed successfully and click close. So I'll click close on this. So this is completed. I'll close this also. Next step is restart SQL 2022 virtual machine system after SQL installation. So just restarting the machine once. I'm just logging through SQL admin. Okay, let's move on to the next step. Now we need to download the latest SQL Server Management Studio. The latest version is 20.2 from the official Microsoft download link. So MS download link I have just mentioned in the slide, but I will just explain, or I will just mention in our description box also. Okay, so this is the link through which you can download your latest SQL Management Studio. Now why do we require Management Studio? Because we need to execute the queries, we need to specify some of the parameters for managing our SQL server, we need to control the properties of our SQL server behavior. So in all, we need to manage your SQL server, so we need our SQL Management Studio. Okay, so we need to download it. So I have already downloaded it. So what I will do is I will just directly copy the downloaded copy on my SQL 2022 server. Okay, so if I am going to SQL server, sorry, not this, if I am going to my SQL server setup, you can see over here SQL Management Studio. So I have already downloaded this particular Management Studio executable. I'm just directly copying it on SQL 2022 server, directly on a desktop also we'll do it. I will mention this particular download link in the description box, so you can download the Management Studio from there, referring to that link. Okay, moving on to the next step. So once downloaded, execute the SQL Server Management Studio and click install. So sorry, I'm just simply double clicking it and I'm just clicking install. So it will install our SQL Server Management Studio. The release version is 20.2. Okay, moving on to the next step, monitor the SQL Server Management Studio installation. So it's already going on. It will take 2 minutes or so. By the time we will move on to the next step. So click close once SQL Server Management Studio installation finishes. So this is completed now, setup completed. I will say close and I will restart the machine. That's why the next one is restart SQL 2022 VM system once. Just for installation to be completed smoothly, we need to just restart the machine. It's having no harm if you are just installing machine once, even if it is not asking. As per my experience of 24 years in IT, Microsoft systems requires a bit of after installation, major installation requires a restart. Okay, so let's move on to the next step. So once restarted, open SQL Server Management Studio through Start menu. So we will open it. This is our SQL 2022 and we can see over here SQL Server Tools, and this is our SQL Server Management Studio. Okay, so I will just drag it to taskbar and now I will open it. Next step is, so through SQL Server Management Studio, select encryption level as optional and click connect. So this is a new feature what they have added into SQL Management Studio. You can select your encryption level also, but as of now we are not bothered about encryption level, so I will not select mandatory, I will say optional. Okay, and make sure that our SQL server name is showing correctly to connect to, and I will say connect. So now I'm connected to my SQL 2022 server through Management Studio. Now next step is we need to just verify through Microsoft official link for SQL version of our community update 15. Now why does we require to do that is, we just need to confirm that we have installed the correct community update 15 and what is the version of our SQL server after installing the community update. So let's go back to our internet machine. I'm opening the browser and through Google, a simple search, you can put up your logic over here, SQL Server 2022 version number or list. Okay, so I will click on this SQL Server 2022 community update builds. Okay, what it is saying, CU15, which we have downloaded latest. What will be our SQL Server build version after installing this? Will be 16.0.414.5.4. okay, keep this in mind. I will come back to my slide and you can see over here SQL Server and CU4 16.414.5.4, same version it is. I've just taken a screenshot. Okay, so keep this in mind. We'll move on to the next step. So kindly note down the SQL version with CU15, which should be like this one. Okay, 16.0 then 4145.4, correct. Now let's verify. So verification number 1, let's verify whether our SQL Server is showing the correct CU version, build version, CU15 version, because that is the whole purpose of this particular video. So we have installed the SQL Server. Now we need to verify whether we have installed it with the correct community update or not. So the next step is, through SQL Server Management Studio, click on new query and type following query. Which query we need to type? Select at version and click on execute. Okay, so we will do this. So on the SQL Management Studio, I will just say new query. Here I will just type select at version. Okay, it will automatically take. And now I will say execute. What it is showing, just see, Microsoft SQL Server 2022 RTM CU15, and it is further showing our KV number also, the whole KV number, right? So it is showing the correct build version of your SQL Server, which is equipped with or integrated with CU15. It is already installed. By the time we have already installing the SQL Server, right? This is the first verification. Okay, next move on to the next step. So as I said, on result pane you can get the confirmation stating Microsoft SQL Server 2022 is running on RTM mode and on CU15, that is your KV number 5041321B. Okay, next is verification number 2. So through SQL Server Management Studio, again right click on your server name and click on properties. So I will click on properties over here, and here I can see the version 16.04145.4, right? So verify the SQL version, which should be matching with our step 54, that is we have just seen through internet also, right? 16.04145.4, and it is showing the same thing, 16.0.4145. That means our SQL Server is running on CU15, community update 15. Okay, so the part 1, installing SQL 2022 along with the latest community update, ends here. Okay, so we will learn how to create a slipstream installation ISO. Slipstream means it is already integrated installation ISO or a DVD of SQL 2022 with the latest community update. Now in the part 1 we have learned how to install the SQL Server with the community update. But what if you need to create an ISO and you can directly run that ISO and SQL Server will get installed with the latest community updates. For that particular procedure we will learn into part 2. Okay? Next video, in the next part 2 video. So thank you for watching this particular video. This is from the Sorop IT Solutions. If you like this particular video, please share it with your friends and subscribe to this channel. Thanks again for watching this video. Have a good day.